I just want to talk about my observations about Vladimir Putin and Russia and their war with Ukraine and just everything that they are doing geopolitically and have been doing for the last 8 years since he annexed Crimea. First off, I my honest opinion of Vladimir Putin and Russia, and I think this is why he invaded Ukraine, is because he's deathly afraid of NATO, and he's deathly afraid of the United States. And both of them together, as we've seen from his ground forces in Ukraine, the U.S. and Europe would absolutely demolish Russia on the ground. In a conventional war, Russia would get wiped out. And there's a lot of reasons for this. One of them is, Russia's a very corrupt country. And I know that they have supposedly set initiatives to increase their readiness on the ground and their forces in general. But from the state of the Russian equipment in Afghanistan, it's pretty obvious to see that the money that was sent to the military to accomplish that mission was siphoned off by generals and whoever else runs that the military in that country. It's pretty obvious that they pocketed the money and they didn't put it in their military. You see military vehicles breaking down first off, and I seen a video, which this is not. I mean, I've heard this other than seeing this video, but they showed it would look like a troop transport. Both of its back tires was just completely flat, and they was driving this military vehicle with two flat tires, and and also another thing I heard, that they bought Chinese tires, and if anybody's bought anything rubber from China, it degrades really badly from UV rays. That right there, I don't know if it's something they don't add into the rubber to make it UV protected, to give it UV protection, but this stuff dry rots. I mean, I've seen it on wheelbarrow tires and, tow dolly tires that you buy from Harbor Freight. They dry rot. We have brand new tires that we bought for our Harbor Freight two-wheel dolly, and brand new, and they won't hold air, and the tires are daggone near dry rotted already. But Putin and Russia are deathly afraid of NATO and the European Union, the United States, and their fear is founded. The only way that Russia has parity with us militarily here in the United States is nuclear weapons. That's the only parity that Russia has with us. We have better, subs, tanks by far, armored personnel carriers. I mean, planes. You name it. Aircraft carriers. They got one dilapidated aircraft carrier that smokes like a freight train and actually had to be towed into port a couple years back because it broke down on its deployment. I mean, it's just so Russia is not the Russia of the USSR, and but my thought of it is, and first off, I heard I heard people talking about chatter they heard in Syria when we was in Syria and Russia was in Syria. The Russian forces was deathly afraid of getting um, even accidentally um, engaged with the United States military. They had several hundred Russian mercenaries that, which I'm not for sure how many of them attacked, but they attacked some U.S. forces over there, and like one strike took out like over 300 Russian mercenaries, and you didn't hear one peep from Russia about it, not one peep. And another thing that he was talking about it being a red line for NATO to send fighter jets to Ukraine. First off, I'm going to tell you what gives away that he is afraid of NATO and the U.S. They are sending anti-tank missiles. They're sending so much advanced weaponry right now to Ukraine. They are absolutely decimating the Russian ground forces. They're decimating them. They're shooting their planes down, really advanced planes. They're even, I don't know if they would be on par with the F-18 jets. I know they're not on par with the or the 35s, but I'm not for sure the parity when it comes to their capabilities. I know they're good jets. That's one of the best things they have is their jets. And but they're shooting down their jets. I mean, they're most advanced jets, and their choppers, and they're taking them out with all that equipment that they're giving to Ukraine. And if he was so worried about a red line, and if he was wanting to be his self, or his normal self that likes to push his weight around, like saying this, that, and like you do this, that, and that. If he wants to be a bully, he sure isn't saying anything about the weapons that they're giving Ukraine to blow their planes and choppers out of the sky. So the biggest fear that I have with Putin, because he doesn't have the capability to hold Ukraine, and I do not believe that he's ever going to take Kyiv. And I honestly don't even believe that he's going to be able to take that second nuclear power plant in the south. They've gotten pushed back several times. I'm hoping not, but I don't believe that he will be able to. And the biggest reason why is because of the way that they are stretching their forces so thin, and it leaves them open to ambush, and it creates a vacuum, like the way they're moving forward in Ukraine. And who's filling that vacuum? Ukrainian fighters. With anti-tank missiles, they're just tearing the hell out of them, the Russians. And but my biggest fear with Putin is he knows when he finally realizes that he can't win, which I don't know if he's at that point yet, if he would not try to use a tactical nuclear weapon in Ukraine. That right there is a nightmare scenario, because it wouldn't be using it against NATO, and they're much smaller scale than a regular nuclear weapon. But that's a very scary prospect for the Ukrainians and anybody that's in that region, including Poland, even though I know that he is deathly afraid of them. So, and, it's just, a caged animal is the most dangerous, and I think Putin's a caged animal. And it's not that I think that he can take Ukraine. It's not that I think that they're even capable enough to take Kyiv. But with the desperation that he's going to be feeling, I'm really worried about what he's going to do. Because they're basically right now, because they can't take these cities, they're bombing on the rubble. They're bombing the rubble, and then they got these ceasefires that they agree to, and when the civilians are trying to flee, they're shelling civilians while they're trying to flee, intentionally breaking the ceasefire, and it's like they're just taking revenge on civilians because they can't militarily achieve their objectives. So that's my biggest fear about this whole conflict, and it's just so horrifying to see this because most of the Russian military doesn't want to be there. There's a lot of them, that's abandoning their vehicles and sabotaging their vehicles, but there's a lot of young men who's dying for nothing because of Putin's ego and because of his fear. They're dying because of his fear. And that's another thing that I worry about, is he's going to get more young men and force them into military service just to die for something that shouldn't even be happening. And I really don't understand Vladimir Putin, because the dude has stolen so much money from Russia that he could live like a king for the rest of his life. He doesn't care about Russia. He doesn't care about the Russian people. I just don't understand why he couldn't just walk away as president. He's been in there. He's had a good run. He's got more money than any man on earth. He could have just left. He could have just left and spent the rest of his days on his freaking super yacht in his $500 million mansion or whatever the hell it is. Instead, he wants to take Russia down with him. I mean, he's 70 years old. He's not going to live forever, Russian life expectancy is not very high for men, So he's not going to live forever. And, it's like he's almost got a diagnosis that he's not going to be around long, and he wants to submit his legacy. I don't know. I can only speculate about that, but I know that it's a concerning situation, and I'm really disgusted by the tactics of the Russian military. I'm really disgusted that these soldiers are even carrying out them orders. I really don't know what type of person you have to be. I would rather be shot than to murder women and children. You know what I mean? Innocent civilians. I mean, who in their right mind would accept that order and carry it out? I just and they're blatantly killing civilians. They're targeting civilians intentionally because they're so pissed off that they can't win militarily. So they're taking it out on the only people that they can, people that do not have guns, that don't have guns. And they just want to live. I seen a story on I believe it was CNN, and it was this little town in Ukraine, and this was a tiny town, and they said that was bombarded by Russia, and their little morgue was a little tiny room, and they said it had 50 bodies in it, and most of them was elderly. They can't get around. They thought they were safer at home. Gone. They murdered, mostly elderly women and children. I mean, most of the men are fighting, unless they're extremely old. But, and I just don't get it. But that's my analysis of the situation. He shows his weakness by not calling out the West for giving lethal weapon to Ukraine. So that shows he's afraid. And that could be a good thing or a bad thing. But Vladimir Putin is not a rational man, so I would lean towards a bad thing. But that's all I'm going to say in this video. Hopefully they can take out enough military hardware that they can stop this war sooner rather than later and mitigate as many civilian casualties as possible. But if you can help Ukraine, please do. I urge you to help Ukraine. I don't know how easy that is, but for everybody, some people have more means than others. But you all have a good evening, and take care and cherish your family. After seeing all this loss of life, you need to cherish your family and those you love, because life is not guaranteed. You can go at any time. It doesn't matter how healthy you are. All it takes is one accident that you don't foresee coming, and you can lose somebody you very much love. And family is worth more than politics or the admiration of a wannabe dictator. So I hope that people cherish their family, because it's very important, and they won't be here forever. But thank you, and have a nice evening. Goodbye.